company. Tonight I'm going to talk about careers in the pharmaceutical industry, in particular focus on careers for biology majors. I want to thank all of you for coming this evening and taking time out of your busy schedules. I know you have lots of work to do, lots of studying to do, so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak with you. Tonight, this is the agenda for the presentation. First, a little bit about myself, and then just a word about Eli Lilly and Company. I'm going to discuss what a biologist can do in big pharma, talk about some example job descriptions for biology majors and biology disciplines, discuss some of the academic requirements and other skill sets appropriate for jobs in the pharmaceutical industry. How, if you're interested in getting into getting a job in the pharmaceutical industry, a word about how you might initially get your foot in the door. And then once you got your foot in the door and have a job, some of the opportunities for career paths, different career paths or career advancement within the pharmaceutical industry. Finally, if you're specifically interested in Lilly, I'll discuss a little bit how you might pursue a job with Lilly in particular. And then there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. However, I'm very informal. If you have questions anytime during the presentation, don't hesitate to stop and ask. I want to make sure that everybody gets all their questions answered. Okay, you know, whenever you work for a big company, there's always the fine print. Just a few caveats for this presentation. Tonight, I am not representing Lilly in any official capacity. So I'm not here to offer any jobs or recruit anybody this evening, although I'm happy to talk about in generalities about jobs at Lilly. The perspectives in this presentation are my own opinion, not necessarily reflect the views of Lilly, and I don't want anybody to think that anything I say is a guarantee for success or actually the only way for success. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. Again, this is my personal opinion. And I am not a human resources professional. I'm a scientist. And I do science at Lilly. So I am not an expert in recruiting or recruiting practices. The primary scope of tonight's presentation is going to be discussing career opportunities for biology-related disciplines mostly at the MS and BS level. Mainly my experience is with big pharma versus a smaller pharmaceutical companies or biotech startup companies. But I think a lot of the information I'll present this evening is probably applicable across the industry in general. In my mind, big pharma, when I say big pharma, what I mean is probably a Fortune 500 company with greater than 1,000 to tens of thousands of employees. Who am I? Again, my name is Bob Beckman. Like you, I attended the University of Illinois, but only a very long time ago. Definitely before any of you were born. I got my BS here in biology in 1978 and went on to get my master's in biology here and graduated in 1981. That was a thesis-based master's degree. I did my work in a molecular biology area. Upon getting my master's degree, I was hired in at Eli Lilly in 1981. I started in research and development, working on a number of molecular biology projects. At the time, recombinant DNA technology was skyrocketing in the industry, so you might say graduated at the right time. I spent about 10 years in research and development, and then moved to the quality and manufacturing component in the 90s. And I've been in manufacturing and quality pretty much ever since. I've held a number of admin, administrative, and technical leadership positions in manufacturing and quality. Today, my title is Senior, big companies are big on titles. Today, my title is Senior Quality Control Consultant. I have a group of 3 scientists that I'm responsible for. We provide technical consulting to a global network of QC laboratories within Lilly. And we have direct oversight for the development and maintenance of biological assays performed in quality control labs worldwide at Lilly. Actually, it's outside of Lilly as well because we manage assays within contract partners as well. So a little bit about Eli Lilly Company for those of you who have never heard of it. Lilly is located in Indianapolis, Indiana as its headquarters. It was founded over 135 years ago by Colonel Eli Lilly. It employs approximately 38,000 people. About 7,500 of those are engaged in R&D. So a lot of opportunity. It's a technical organization, a lot of opportunity for scientists. We conduct clinical research in over 55 countries. We have research and development facilities in 8 countries and manufacturing plants in over 13 countries. So you can see it's a very global operation. And it's the 10th largest pharmaceutical company in the world. Just to give you an idea, some of the medicines that Lilly produces, you or one of your relatives may use some of these compounds. We encompass medicines all across the different therapeutic areas: cardiovascular, diabetes, neuroscience, oncology. Okay. So, what can a biologist do in the pharmaceutical industry? Opportunities exist in almost every biology-related discipline. Molecular and cell biology, microbiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, animal science, neurobiology, statistics, bioinformatics. So almost anything is applicable within the industry. There's a number of career options that encompass both theoretical and practical applications of science. Theoretical being more like research and development, practical being more like manufacturing science. So I have a couple slides here and some of the example job titles or job types that you could find in a typical pharmaceutical company. One of the areas I work intimately with is quality control. Every lot of product that is manufactured at a pharmaceutical company needs to be tested rigorously to make sure it is what it purports to be. That is, that it has a certain potency, it has a certain purity, it has a certain efficacy. And assays have been designed to measure all those analytical properties. So quality control analyst is responsible for running that routine analytical testing. Manufacturing science is more applied rather than theoretical, applying principles of science to the manufacture of pharmaceuticals, monitoring processes, figuring out how to control, minimize contamination, and processes for improvement, yield improvement, purity improvement, whatever that might be. Classic research and development job. Again, these are lab-focused jobs towards identification of new pharmaceuticals. I did that for about 10 years. Analytical development, they design and implement the assays that quality control labs use for routine testing. Quality assurance provides oversight to all the different areas within the pharmaceutical company to ensure they adhere to good manufacturing practices and all the applicable government regulations, policies, and standards. Most of those do take a science background. Process development. Again, a practical application as opposed to a theoretical application of science, developing manufacturing processes for large-scale and small-scale manufacture. Clinical trials, clinical pharmacology, actually those are the medical research related to how the compounds work in the clinic. Formulation, design, and development. So, you know, you take sometimes pharmaceuticals are injectables, sometimes they're pills, sometimes they're tablets, sometimes they're capsules. All those dosage form are deliberate to make sure that they improve or enhance the pharmacological response. So a lot of science in terms of what goes in a formulation. In your pill, it's not just the active ingredient, but there's a lot of other junk in there that makes sure that it dissolves appropriately, is bioavailable, etc. So formulation, design, and development is very, very critical. Pharmacology or toxicology, drug metabolism. Again, looking at the pharmacological actions of drugs or medicinal agents. And regulatory sciences, they're the ones who deal with the government. They're the ones who create and write up the filings for new drug applications. Questions thus far?
So which of these job opportunities are available just at DS or MS?
Actually, a lot of them. Quality control, manufacturing and science, R&D, analytical development on this page are mostly entry-level positions or can be entry-level positions. Process development to a certain extent. The others are probably more second generation or as you get more experience. Okay, what kind of academic requirements are there for getting a job in the pharmaceutical industry? Actually, we hire at all degree levels, BS and MS, PhD, MD, veterinary, or pharmacy degrees. I want to focus more on the true sciences like biology, chemistry, so the BS, MS, PhD kind of position. So a lot of students trying to decide, do I need an MS or a BS or a PhD? Again, we hire at all levels. But it really becomes a question of cost versus benefit ratio. You know, the longer you stay in school, the longer you're out of the market not earning money. However, the longer you stay in school and the higher the degree you get, the more income you can command. However, at the PhD level, there's a lot fewer jobs than at the MS-BS level. And usually in industry, any PhD position usually requires a postdoc. So for example, my brother, I have an identical twin brother. He also went to the University of Illinois. But he went, after I finished at my master's, Rich went on to get his PhD at the State University of New York, and then he went on to do his postdoc at the University of California in San Francisco, and he was out of the market for about 10 years longer than I was. So he got a job at Lilly as well after he got his PhD, and he made more money than I do, but I had 10 years extra earning that he didn't do. And I think at this point, after 30 years, I think he's just about catching up to me, so in terms of savings. So there is a trade-off, and it was much harder for him to get a job at a PhD level than for me at the MS level, because the number of jobs are not available for a PhD as there are at the MS levels. And at that point, you're very, very specialized. So, you know, if you don't exactly fit what they're looking for, there's plenty of other candidates out there. So that's kind of the trade-off that you make. Now, the difference between MS and BS jobs is basically the job descriptions for MS, BS jobs are identical. I think, so it's not always a benefit to have a MS over a BS. However, you are more competitive because you usually have some practical base experience that a pharmaceutical company is looking for. Questions on that?
Is there a benefit to having a PharmD rather than MS?
There are other opportunities for PharmDs in pharmaceutical industries that are not necessarily open to scientists at MS, BS levels, at entry level anyway. For example, we hire a lot of PharmDs as sales reps. A lot of them can also join quality assurance, because they have some of that training as part of their PharmD degree. They do command higher salaries when they come in. So yes, there are some benefits. Okay, continuing with academic requirements, I was trying to think of like some course curriculum choices that could make you more competitive. So some courses will look good or prepare you better for a job in the pharmaceutical industry than other courses. And I know here at Illinois, there's lots of courses that you can take and choose from. So some of the more competitive choices, I think, that look good on a resume or prepare you to hit the ground running when you enter the pharmaceutical industry would be things like cellular or molecular biology. That was my background. Microbiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, bioinformatics, or anything that gives you a strong, practical, lab-based experience. Some of the less competitive choices would be things like physiology, anatomy, ecology. So if you're interested in working in the pharmaceutical industry and you have opportunities to take electives, think about some of these things that might make you more competitive. There are other things outside the biology curriculum that you might want to think about if you're thinking about industry in general, not just the pharmaceutical industry. First, statistics. I didn't have much of a statistic background when I came at Lilly. I've learned some in my 32 years. I don't think it's enough. I write a lot of technical reports where statistics are a basis of your conclusions. So understanding that gives you a leg up. Now, Lilly hires statisticians, so there's plenty of help there, but it's nice to be able to understand that and talk shop and kind of challenge the thinking. And if you don't have any understanding for statistics, you just have to take whatever they say. Technical writing is also something good. I write a lot of technical reports. I didn't have technical writing as a student. It's something that I learned through years of doing technical reports. Technical writing is very different than expository writing. You're trying to get a point across, use data to sell your argument or whatever. So it's more logical thinking. And I've seen some really, really bad technical reports in my career. And I think when you write something good, you can convince anybody. We deal in our industry with a lot of regulatory agencies, and regulatory agencies challenge us all the time. And providing a good technical argument will slant the argument in your favor. Other things, chemistry, math. I took math through calculus. I think that was a good thing. Not that I've used calculus a lot, but again, it solidified kind of that logical thinking, and some physics is also good. Going back up to the more competitive choices, one of the best courses I think that I took here to prepare myself for the job in the pharmaceutical industry was some of my biochemistry classes, particularly the laboratory. I think it was 350.
Yeah,
is it still 355?
It's now 455.
Yeah, so I took that, and I thought it was a real pain when I took it. I spent a lot of long hours in the laboratory, but it really was a good course to help me prepare for working in a laboratory, and not only in the pharmaceutical industry, when I went on to get my master's degree.
And I'll put in a quick plug, it also counts as an advanced MCD lab.
Yeah. It was really it was probably one of the harder courses I took, but it was probably one of the few that I really felt like was helped me get a leg up. Let's talk a moment about GPA. What kind of GPA do you need? Do you need a 4.0? Not necessarily, but the pharmaceutical industry, especially now under all the economic pressures, is pretty competitive. So the higher the GPA you have, the better. I know at Lilly, when we look at people, generally we won't look at anybody that has less than 3.5. Although we're more flexible with that if you have practical experience or some other experience or rationale that might explain the lower GPA. But definitely in your core science curriculum, it needs to be high. You might want to also consider some options to gain more practical lab experience. For example, doing a senior research thesis, getting some prior lab experience, whether that's through an internship, contract lab, summer job, or whatever. Having some practical lab research experience will give you a leg up. Again, let's talk about the master's degree. This is the route I chose. When I got my BS, I wasn't sure that I was competitive enough or had enough experience to work in a lab as a job. So I decided to go on for my master's degree to get that research experience. Again, if you're going to do this, it should be thesis-based and not course-based only. Questions? Okay, what kind of skills beyond the technical? You know, these are technical jobs, but at a big company, it's all about working with other people and how well you get along and how well you integrate this. So having some of the well-rounded interpersonal package is important, and is also is something that I know that we look at when we hire candidates. So some of the things we like to see is leadership, you know, being able to champion your ideas, being self-motivating, and examples of that. In fact, we spend a lot of time in our interviewing talking about not only the technical, but some of these other skills. We also look for strong teamwork skills. Again, it's not all about you. At a big company, things are done in teams and not in individual silos. So if you can't get along with your peers, you don't play well in the sandbox, you're not going to be very successful. Influence, you have to have the ability to initiate and win support for personal ideas. You know, from my personal experience and perspective, I don't have a PhD, but I work with a lot of PhD scientists. And initially that always put me at a disadvantage because I was always felt like that they were going to see me as less than their peer. And so over the years, I had to develop some self-confidence and an ability to be able to influence and show them that I can compete with them even though I don't have that same degree level. And you know, early on I wasn't very successful, but later on I learned how to do that. So you know, the ability to influence is important. And again, some of that goes back to good oral and written communication. So being able to communicate your ideas either in a meeting setting, a setting like this during presentations, or in a technical report are things that will get you, serve you well. Okay. So if you're interested in pharmaceutical career, how can you get your foot in the door? The first thing I'll tell you is to try and leverage your career placement services here at the University of Illinois. I know Lilly, as well as other companies, use these resources to post jobs. So finding those websites, looking at those websites, working with your career placement personnel is important. Attend on-campus career fairs and employer forums. I know tomorrow there's an all-campus career fair. Last year I participated in that as a representative from Lilly. This year I wasn't able to do that, but I plan to do that in future years. And I know a number of companies do that. And there are other career fairs throughout the year. So I encourage you guys to go to those. You know, you have nothing to lose. It just gives you an opportunity of what's available, whether it's in the pharmaceutical industry or someplace else. And it's opportunity to meet employers. Last year I took away several resumes. And a few of those I actually followed up on the following year when we were looking to fill some openings. I'm an old guy, so I'm not familiar with electronic resources as well as you guys, but I encourage you to use whatever electronic resources available to you. I know all big pharmaceutical companies have web portals for posting jobs. Lilly.com is where you go for looking for jobs at Lilly. There's a number of entry-level and experience-level jobs that we post there from time to time. I encourage you to develop and leverage networks, friends that maybe work at other pharmaceutical companies, professors or career professionals here. I've talked to Jennifer, I've talked to the chemistry career professional here, I've talked to a number of the biology professors here in my quest for filling openings. So a lot of times I'm looking to them to help me identify really good candidates. So sometimes your professors or career professionals know a lot and you just need to seek them out and talk to them. How I got my job at Lilly, one of the things I was fortunate in is that when I was doing my master's thesis here with Byron Kemper, I think he's since retired, but the guy who hired me at Lilly actually did a postdoc with Byron Kemper at MIT. So when I interviewed, that gave me a little bit of advantage to get a job. So, I had two strokes of luck. That interaction between Byron Kemper and the guy that ultimately hired me, as well as graduating with the right major at the right time when molecular biology was really skyrocketing in the industry. Finally, I encourage you to look for internships companies will use interns as a pool for sourcing full-time candidates. I know that's the goal at Lilly, is we'll look for interns in their sophomore years and junior years, and then when they graduate, if we really like them while they working with us as interns, we'll actually hire them for full-time positions. So I think there was somebody from Illinois that was an intern last year that we offered a full-time position to for this year upon graduation. So we do it. Besides internships, I would consider looking for either summer jobs or whatever where you can get some lab experience. Okay, preparing a good resume is important. I'm not going to go into the whole resume writing thing. I think you guys have seminars or whatever on how to do that, but just in general, I wanted to tell you is that most people that review your resumes will be technical people like me and not HR personnel. So they should, the way you write them should somewhat reflect that. When I look at a resume, I go straight to their technical abilities. All the other stuff I'm not interested in if they don't have a really good technical skill package. So highlight your technical skills with the most significant achievements at the beginning. Also, I'm interested in beyond technical, you know, your teamwork skills, your interpersonal skills, whatever. If you have examples of other kinds of jobs that are not necessarily technical, those are good things to bring forward as well.
So what would you define as a desirable set of technical skills from your perspective when you're looking for candidates?
I will look for somebody who well, what I will do, I'll take put someone on the top of the stack that has some real relevant lab experience, either a research project or I worked in a contract lab testing water samples or worked in a hospital lab doing clinical testing or something like that. So those are the things I like to see. I wouldn't expect someone at the undergraduate level to have, you know, tons and tons of lab experience, but I want to see where someone went beyond book learning to a certain extent. Does that answer your question? I recommend applying for anything and everything. Sometimes it's being at the right place at the right time. Again, with my own experience with Lilly 32 years ago when I applied, that's the way it was. I submitted an application. I had some expertise in molecular biology, and they happened to be expanding that division. So it is sometimes just being at the right place at the right time. Okay, preparing for an interview, and these are some of my thoughts based on some of the do's and don'ts I've seen when I've been interviewing people. First of all, you need to know something about the company. When I talk to students and they know absolutely nothing about Eli Lilly, why they want to work there, or how they think they're going to contribute or fit in, that's, to me, I'm already turned off. Not that you need to know a lot, but I think at the minimum you should know that they're a pharmaceutical company, you know, that you're interested in R&D or you're interested in, you know, manufacturing sciences or whatever. So do some homework before you do an interview. Understand what your long-term goals are. Have some kind of plan of where you want to be in 10 years. I know it's kind of a canned interview question, but people want to hear that you have at least something in mind of what you want to do. The other big turnoff during an interview is, well, I want to work here for 2 years and then I'm going to go to medical school. I'll tell you right now, pharmaceutical employers do not want to hear that. You may want to do that, and that's okay. Go ahead and do that. But I recommend not being so forthcoming with that because we're looking for longer-term commitments. It takes a lot to train someone, to bring someone up to speed, and to have them leave after 2 years. I think there's plenty of competitive candidates out there that are indeed interested in doing science for a long-term, in a long-term commitment that students that want to go to medical school a few years are frankly not worth our effort. Practicing your interview skills are important. I know Lilly uses situational questions as a common interview practice. So for example, they'll ask you a question, give me an example when you showed leadership. Or tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a colleague and how did you resolve it. So kind of think about the questions that interviewers might ask you and prepare some answers. Most importantly, you need to be honest and sincere. Interviewers can see through that really quickly. I've had a lot of people try and fake it, and you can pretty much tell right away. Okay, let's talk about, once you get a job at a pharmaceutical company, what kind of opportunities are there beyond entry level? So big pharma, these companies are huge. So there's an unlimited number of career paths or potential for career growth and development. Most pharmaceutical companies have dual ladders for advancement. You can stay in a technical track, or you can jump over to administrative or managerial track. The technical track is purely based on scientific contribution and achievements. So much like if you think of a university, you have a assistant professor, associate professor, full professor. So the longer you stay, you develop a certain technical, deep and broad technical expertise that is utilized at the company, and you can grow in a technical field. Administrative is, like it says, mostly like managers, directors, vice presidents, etc. Because big pharmaceutical companies are largely technical companies, most of these people have technical degrees. Not all of them. Our CEO at Lilly has a PhD in chemistry. Usually the higher levels of management do require the higher degrees like PhD or MD or PharmD. Your ability to develop your career is solely based upon your interests or skill sets. So who asked a question about, you asked a question about entry level versus second generation. These here are kind of some of the jobs you can go into after you have some experience beyond entry level. Regulatory compliance, project management, clinical trial management, legal, although you need a law degree for that. There are a number of people that actually go back or Lilly will pay for some people to go to law school while they're working, and then once they get their law degree, hire them within the legal division. Or if you want to completely depart from science altogether, you can go into sales, marketing, HR, a number of different areas. I just wanted to illustrate kind of the dual ladder for advancement. This is pretty commonplace in most pharmaceutical firms, either a technical track or a management track. And you can proceed, have your entire career proceed along a technical track. You can jump back and forth. I did that. I was a manager for a while and decided I hated doing admin leadership, so I jumped back to the technical track. So there's a lot of opportunities. I also wanted to highlight here is the difference between BS, MS, and PhD level. So typically BSs are brought in at the lowest technical level. MSs are usually brought in at one level higher. PhDs are brought in at several levels higher. So, however, your ability to move to the higher levels, even those that are here and beyond the entry level for PhDs, are not limited by your degree. We have plenty of people at the BS, MS levels that are operating at these higher technical levels. So, but it just takes more time. Okay, just a word on, what if you're interested in Lilly specifically? We do actively recruit on campus here at the University of Illinois for scientists. That includes engineers, chemists, and biologists. There are opportunities for both full-time and intern positions. Most of those, I think, are posted early in the fall, usually around September, on the School of Chemical Sciences website. So I think you guys have access to that. I'm not sure how aware you are of that, but the biology school does not have a site for posting jobs. So I know the jobs that I've posted on the School of Chemical Sciences website.
And you're right, we do have, our biology students do have access to that. Probably should consult with chemistry to find out exactly what you have to do.
Yeah. So, and I believe, you're free to talk to that, even though you're not part of the School of Chemical Sciences, you're free to use it, right? Yeah, okay. So, I specifically are involved in the recruiting effort for quality and manufacturing sciences. So every year we post a few intern and a few full-time positions on that website. There are other people from Lilly that also recruit for different areas, like for chemists or engineers or whatever. So I'm not the only person at Lilly. I only represent the manufacturing and quality component. Also, be on the lookout for employer information sessions. I know I held one last fall in October to talk about specifically the jobs I was posting, and I know some of the other recruiting point captains also had some employer information sessions for students. So look out those. And besides what we post here on the University of Illinois website, try checking out the lilly.com and see what's there. There's things throughout the year that are posted.
I have one more thing. Through the Career Center, there's a thing called iLink.
Yeah.
Every student can access that, and I believe your postings will show up there also.
That's correct.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with iLink, get on the Career Center's website and familiarize yourself with it. It's a great way to look for positions.
Okay, so that was basically my presentation. I didn't know if any of you had any further questions. If you're not comfortable in speaking in a group, I'll hang around for a little while, and you're free to approach me one-on-one and ask any questions.
In your experience, how prevalent is bioinformatics and computer science and sciences like that involved in companies like yours?
Personally, I don't work a lot with those people or in that area, but I know particularly in the medical component and toxicology, it's very, very prevalent. There are a number of jobs available for that annually.
When you worked in research and development, what was like a typical day of work like? When you get into work, what would you do?
I was in the molecular biology division, and initially, my project was to clone and express the gene for a blood clotting factor. So it was trying to isolate that gene through recombinant DNA technology, amplify that in in bacterial cells, isolate that, and then transfer that to mammalian cells for expression. So it was very much kind of trying to develop techniques on how to do that. Nowadays, all that stuff is done in kits. It's a lot easier. 30 years ago, it wasn't as easy as it is today. But it was, you know, searching literature on, you know, how I can isolate that gene, trying to develop the techniques from that literature to do that, experimenting with different techniques to enhance what I was trying to do, those kinds of things. So it was very exciting, interesting, novel work. There was a group of probably about 50 scientists in the whole molecular biology division, and we were all working on different things. And it was amazing on, you know, if you didn't know a technique, somebody else was familiar with that, so working with other people to try and figure out how to do something. I remember when PCR technology was relatively novel, I was interested in doing that and had no idea on how to do it. But there was a person down the hall that had been doing some experiments with that. So, you know, we try and leverage the current technology to discover new drugs. So research and development, in my mind, is one of the most exciting, best areas for people at BS, MS levels to get into the pharmaceutical industry. Other questions?
So when you initially first started off, was there like a decent amount of collaboration and kind of like working as a team, or were you kind of just like put out? No. You're not left to your own devices or floundering or whatever. You know, again, we had a group of about 50, 60 scientists. There were, we had weekly forums where we'd all talk about our research, talk about things we were doing, share technology, that kind of thing. There were 3 people in the laboratory. 2 of them were very experienced, so kind of utilized them to help me figure out problems. There was a senior scientist in the laboratory who had been at Lilly for a very long time that oversaw all the projects. So we sat down on a regular basis to talk through ideas, talk about where to go next, that kind of thing. So it's very, very much interactive. Other questions? Does that answer your question? Great.
You said that when you got into MCB 30 years ago, like the job market was expanding. Are there less jobs available now?
I would not necessarily. Yes, I think there are more significant economic pressures. I know at Lilly itself, over the last 5-10 years, we've cut the workforce, so there's less available for new hires. But the flip side to that is, I think industry recognizes that young people are the future of the company, and you have to bring young people up in the learning while the old people are still around. So I know we're very committed to adding new people to our workforce every year. So even though it's probably a little more competitive, there are jobs out there. And if you go outside of the big pharmaceutical firms, there's tons and tons of startup biotechnology companies that are hiring people as well. So again, while I think there are some economic pressures on the pharmaceutical industry to downsize, I think they all recognize the lifeblood for sustainability is hiring in new people on a continuing basis. Now, what I will say is I kind of think there are a lot of people out there looking for jobs, so it's really, really competitive. I know, again, when I look at resumes, I'll look at grade point, you know, pretty much below 3.5. I necessarily won't look at unless I
unless they have a lot of practical experience. So if they have more practical experience, grade point isn't as important to me. But primarily I'll put the people that have some lab experience at the top of my stack to look at. That doesn't mean we don't hire anybody with no lab experience. It just gets more and more competitive. Other questions?
When you were working towards your bachelor's degree, were you involved with undergraduate research at all?
I was not. I did not. To be honest with you, when I was undergrad, I always thought that I was going to go to medical school. And I did apply to medical school, and I did not get in. And part of my decision in going for a master's degree was the intent that I was going to apply again. And frankly, I never did. I enjoyed the bench work. I enjoyed working for Lilly. So it never really crossed my mind to do that again. So when I was an undergrad, I wasn't really thinking I was going to go into the pharmaceutical industry. So I did not entertain anything other than kind of book learning thing. I think my biggest intent here for you guys this evening is to let you know there are other opportunities out there. Again, when I was here, when I was a biology major, I didn't know what the heck to do with that. I thought there was only one option in and that was going to medical school or going to dental school or somewhere in the health field. And I realized after I got this job that there are a lot of opportunities besides that. So I want to encourage you guys to, I think if you have those plans, that's great. You need to pursue that dream. But I think you also need to consider that dream may not come to fruition, and you need to start considering different options for a backup plan and preparing, whether you're, for example, I have a choice of taking physiology or molecular biology. Well, I think molecular biology or cell biology will make you a lot more competitive in industry rather than physiology, and I don't think it matters which one you take if you go into medical school. I might recommend take molecular biology, because if you don't get into medical school, it might give you a leg up in getting into industry. So I think that's what I really want to impress upon everybody this evening.